Hi, welcome back. This is part 3 of me reviewing SBS's Living Black Cladding episode. I'm Isaac Harrison, so Indigenous business owner, tech, craft beer, consulting, branding, marketing. Seems like everything, but it's not really. Just a couple of things that I do really well and do that across a couple of ventures. So this is the last little bit, and we'll see how this episode finishes up. It's all about identifying fraudulent businesses that say they're Indigenous owned or Aboriginal owned, but the reality is they're not. So profits and revenue go away from any sort of community benefit and go to the hands of non-Indigenous people, who are usually corporate sharks who have been around the space and just take advantage of people. So hope you enjoy the last one, and talk to you soon. Let's go.
We've got to get education, literacy and numeracy right. If we don't get that right, we're not fixing reconciliation for the long term.
Essentially, we have maintained Indigenous spending in this budget, and I'm very proud of that.
It does create opportunities for the development of businesses and employment for Indigenous people.
It is time for
Employment
governments
tree.
to do...
Sorry, Warren. I don't even know what is the context of these little speeches. I think if you typed in, if you had an AI generator of typing something in like politicians talking about helping blackfellas, this is probably what you'd get. Because I don't know.
Do things with Aboriginal people, not do things to them.
I know about
the best intentions, investments in new
Uncle
programs
Ken.
and bipartisan goodwill, closing the gap has never really been a partnership with Indigenous people.
Those realities of disadvantage and inequality.
You got to give it to Uncle Ken. So he was Liberal, and he walked over to support The Voice, and a lot of other politicians did that. So, yeah, I think policy over politics is so important. I think Indigenous people, if we stay true to our culture and together country, could really lead that. That's just a little side thing. But when I see moments like that with Uncle Ken, it's encouraging that people will put values and what they believe over whatever the party line is, so to speak.
Stare up at us from every page.
The main reason for all governments, federal, states and territories giving some priority to First Nations businesses is to address economic inequality. The theory goes the more Indigenous people in business, the more jobs created, the more money generated. All those factors would boost living standards, including health, education and life expectancy. The theory is fine, but black cladding is just another form of exploitation of First Nations peoples.
It is. Something to make mention here is increasing the economic baseline for our mob. A large percentage of our mob live in regional areas or remote areas. I think that's what Bureau of Statistics classify. So industry and economic activity is quite limited. So I think that's a factor that people don't talk about, where no one wants to see people come off country, but the reality is you sort of have to come into the cities, especially for like education, and then sort of earn your stripes, so to speak, get a few runs on the board, and then you go back on country. But then even then, it's still a bit of a challenge to manage. So I know of regional remote areas where there is some black cladding, so it's a bit of insult to injury because they finally got opportunity to manage something through a business enterprise, and then that's sort of taken away from a non-Indigenous party that calls all the shots.
I have seen examples of black cladding tearing families apart because of the stress that it puts onto the Indigenous business owner. And it can be incredibly traumatising, not just for the business owner, but the people they care for and the people that they support through their business.
You've sought legal advice about dealing with the tax office. What have you been told?
I've been told that if my name doesn't get cleared and if my defence doesn't hold up, that this debt will stay in my name until it is paid off, and will prevent me from buying a house in the future, will prevent me from travelling the world, will prevent me from operating my own business, which is something I do want to do and something I'm passionate
No, bro, that debt's not going to affect the opportunity to buy a house. That's just everyone. But it is sad, because A2 have to do their process, so he would be getting the generic, policy and A to Z, which is pretty like lifeless and cold, and you can feel so isolated. Even as a business owner, when you're trying to work out payment plans or whatever with ATO, some of it's even automated. So it's like, we're essentially the tax agents collecting the tax on behalf of the government, and you're like, I need some help, and they're like, press 1 to talk to. So yeah, that would be nice, especially if you got 700,000 hanging over your head.
about. So it really just puts a massive hold on my life.
Are you hopeful that this will get dealt with?
At the end of the day, I'm praying that my name does get cleared so I can go back to living a normal life as a young 26-year-old man who was not even, had begun. Yeah, sorry.
It's all right, it's okay. Just take a moment.
It's been the best part of 6 months, and every day just feels darker than the next.
So I'd love to see lawmakers like the ACCC step up.
Man, that's heavy. So young, and the biggest, I think, emotional burden with black cladding, if we go into the person's shoes, is the management of the expectation. So Adam Williams said in the last clip about they promise you the world, and they promise you, yep, you'll be director, get you a house, get a car, company car, set you up. You just got to do 1, 2, 3. And then as you go along, you realize sometimes the 1, 2, 3 is not even met. And on top of that, you've got a cultural exploitation where our colors, our stories are used to insinuate some sort of return to the community. And that's when you have to stand up and say, well, this is black cladding, because this is not helping anyone out except for you guys, and you sometimes pay me a salary. Well, he was paid a salary, but he wasn't paid a director fee as well, because he could even, if he's paid a director fee properly and there's proper governance, he could have got director's insurance, and been safe for that. So it'd be interesting what Matt says here, because people like Matt, lawyer, Terry Janke, Bevan Malman, having Indigenous lawyers, Brian Barrow, before any of this happens, I think needs to be done. The NI, National Indigenous Australian, Aboriginal Australians, I can't even say it, NIAA, IBA, and those groups should look to support more workshops where you get all the legalities settled. And I think that would cancel out a lot of black cladding. Maybe even if someone's recognised Indigenous and they're going to start a business course degree, maybe there's an extra component that's culturally sensitive to train people who come out and then with business ambitions or TAFE or something that can get across to the next generation. And it's not just young, so people think, oh, it's just young people, but it could be anyone. It could be anyone. It could be Indigenous people that have a small sole trader business and they're looking to go to the next level, so they look for a partnership. They need the training, the education, the governance. So yeah, be interesting to see what Matt says here.
And use their sword to put an end to black cladding. I'd also love to see new laws made so that we can have proper accountabilities to Aboriginal peoples as a result of the loss that's caused by black cladding.
There it is. Oh no, the text, it's the National Indigenous Australians Agency. I was close.
The National Indigenous Australians Agency is reviewing procurement policies. Supply Nation has recommended a higher bar for government contracts. At least 51% ownership by First Nations people. Also effective management, control and, importantly, jobs for Indigenous people. Supply Nation wants to be better resourced to do its job, but some entrepreneurs question whether there is a level playing field under the existing model. When Supply Nation is contacted by corporate and government members seeking to engage Indigenous businesses for procurement, is there a transparent process for allocating them?
Supply Nation doesn't pick winners. That's one of our point of differences. We create an enabling environment where it's almost like a matchmaker. We have a list of Indigenous businesses, we have a list of members. We work with our members.
Sounds like a Netflix show. Indigenous Business Matchmaker. Are you truly the one?
To fulfil their specific requirements.
Noongai Warren Mundine is concerned that some companies seem to get a big share of government contracts. We've been told that there has been favouritism by Supply Nation in the distribution of contracts. Do you know of any cases like this?
There's a handful of companies that have this incredible cartel arrangement where everything comes through them, and other people have to get, if they want contracts, they got to get to that state. And so I think there needs to be a lot of work done in that area.
I think I know who he's talking about. There's a couple of cartels. So, and it's horses for courses too. Some of these are quite industry specific. So if you know the right people, talk to the right people. I'll say this before they get there, if they get there, but a lot of people who help set up these organizations in the early days, the ones doing the heavy lifting, and when corporates and people memberships, they would go to that individual to get help and they would redirect them. So that could be seen as, a centralized mechanism for Indigenous opportunities where others who don't know that individual miss out. But that just happens organically when you grow something. What I think some people have pushed is for something like Supply Nation, which is a federal organization, is strong representation from each state so that there's a more, balanced outcome. But yeah, that's hard because then you got to get people to get along, and getting mobbed to get along is, that's get a Nobel Peace Prize for that one, I think.
Are former and current Supply Nation staff and board members or their families allowed to run Indigenous certified and registered businesses that take up IPP contracts through you?
Yes, so there is nothing preventing a staff member, particularly a former staff member or a former board member, from competing or accessing opportunities under the IPP. We do have a code of conduct both for staff and for board members. That means that they cannot take advantage of any information gained during their roles for personal advantage.
I just think that point about the individuals holds true where, like, if you build a relationship and then you have a business after, then there's nothing you can do about that. But that statement's a little bit, I think it misses a little because it's very clear that people will be using those relationships. What they probably should look to do, I don't know if they say this, but every other business or business I've been in or exited businesses, there's usually clauses where you cannot work in a specific field for at least a year or two, or there's like a non-compete, right? So again, I'm highlighting the fact that IPP came out in 2015. A lot of Indigenous businesses, the sector was quite fragmented. There was zero advantage apart from tourism and arts for displaying your Aboriginal heritage. Even in the sporting field, there was like, people knew they were like blackfellas, it wasn't like the jerseys and everything was as prevalent as they are now, or the design on stadium or infrastructure was like, we're proud of our culture. Like Canada, you walk into an airport, it looks like it. Canadian, First Nations, Longhouse, or you go to the Māori in New Zealand, it's prevalent. We're still catching up. So a lot of this will require fine tuning. So I never really hang it on mob who work in this space and then they go start a business, but saying that there has to be some sort of clause when you take a position, a secured paid position in one of these organizations versus another brother or sister who's doing it on their own, self-funded, working 3 jobs. There has to be some sort of, balance there.
Living Black has been told of a perception of fairness by some business people, that staff and directors of Supply Nation may have been awarded contracts. We asked Supply Nation how...
So, Living Black, why you keep making these fellas go on their own website? It's so weird. It's like, it's going to go on my own website and scroll down.
Conflicts of interest are managed. What are your processes to ensure that there is no corruption or conflict of interest within Supply Nation's staff or board members?
So for staff, we have a conflict of interest policy and register, and we have a secondary employment register as well that is updated every time a staff comes on board.
Kate was pretty fresh here as the CEO, so she's done a pretty good job to be able to just spit these off. Like that's some good brain power there.
There was a serious conflict of interest, we would require staff to step away from an opportunity internally to make sure that our integrity wasn't questioned. If a Supply Nation staff member or board member were taking information that they gained during their employment with us and...
I love Karla's like so stonewalled, but sometimes when someone says something, she just has this look, looks at her notepad and looks up, which says so much more.
Misusing that to benefit
their
family, then yes, that would be deemed a serious conflict of interest and breach.
Supply Nation commissioned research on which companies get contracts. Businesses at least 51% Indigenous owned won most contracts. New businesses struggle to get contracts, and women-owned businesses earn only 14% of the revenue from all contracts.
That's like explains the look Karla just gave. Like most contracts won by JVs, and they're the ones that have the big question mark of, are you black cladded? New businesses struggle. Now, a new business could be classified as new in this space. So there are people who've worked in like earthworks or construction, and then they've been informed across infrastructure projects that they could win something as an Indigenous business that provides an outcome to mob and community. They go in and they set up to win that work. Some corporates will treat that as a new business because it's new to them. It's new to their supply chain. They've got to do their qualifications. They've got to do their RFQs. They've got to do all their tenders and all the, what's the word of, it's gone blank. All the, ticking all the boxes of complete compliance. Got to do all the compliance. So it is new to them in that sense. So groups that are already in those, and then they turn around and go, hey, did you know we have an Aboriginal business? Yeah, it was just in our pocket the whole time. Yeah, this is Barry. He's such and such man. Yeah, he found out last week. So that's when it becomes a kick in the gut. So, but yeah, again, Supply Nation doesn't really have that enforcement, do they? Like, do they have the resource to have pay a third-party auditor to come through and do those things and bring out the sword, as Matt Karla has said?
I think the business segment's outgrown Supply Nation personally. I think they have to sort of move with the market, and I don't think they have over the last 5 or 6 years in particular.
When the federal...
I think I disagree with what he said about it's outgrown. I think, 50-50. They're probably outgrown the ability to qualify, quantify, and perform very, like if you went for an ISO, very strong compliance, 5,000 something members. All right. So Kinaway Chamber of Commerce, they have a couple hundred members down here with a team of 15, 20, fluctuates depending on what programs are going. So their board look at the businesses and go through the individual, the structure, and those sort of things. And I know other chambers across the country do that because they're smaller by nature. Supply Nation is the biggest. But this is where I think where Supply Nation's greatest strength is, and it's the event side. It's the ability to have hundreds of business exhibit, usually at the Sydney Exhibition Centre. This year's in Brisbane, and come together. That and that ability for them to do that is unquestionable that they're number one. And it will continue to be number one because they have been proven to do this well. And people get excited. And some mob who I know who are, on and off with Supply Nation, they love Connect. And they say, it's my favorite time of the year. One person said it was Black Christmas. And I was like, probably need better hobbies, brother. So, and it's fun. So you get together. Remember, I think last year I went and there was like the South African women's team because the Women's World Cup was on. And one of the Kinaway guys invited them because he saw them in the lobby. So it's like, you have these crazy events. So I think Connect does that well. And Supply Nation, who that connects their event, is going to continue to do well. So yeah, it's about a 50-50 take on what Adam just said.
Indigenous procurement policy kicked off in 2015, First Nations businesses were awarded $350 million
Steve,
in
Kira.
contracts. Now,
those guys are from Beech Tree Gin, and they're distilleries on my country in Caloundra, which is a place of beech tree in Cubby Cubby. And they make organic, native-inspired gins. They're absolutely amazing. Beech Tree Gin. I'm giving them a plug. I don't know why. There'll be like 60 people that view this. But I will put their link below. So they're deadly. Please check them out. And if you're in the area, please duck in and say g'day.
The annual federal government spend on the IPP is more than $1.5 billion. Making sure that money actually goes to Indigenous people is more important than ever. The government is expected to announce new policies on procurement programs later this year.
What I think needs to be done...
Kieran Hines says there needs to be much more training of government procurement officers about identifying genuine Indigenous businesses.
The governance should align to policy, and policy without policing is just paper. So I'm an ex-Army officer. The Commonwealth procurement rules are rules. They're not guidelines, they're not good ideas, they're rules that you should be bound by. And I think once a few people get prosecuted for fraud, I think a lot of the general narrative around black cladding would go away.
I think it's sad that we're heading towards there, what Kieran just said. But ultimately, it's probably necessary. Yeah, because the people that take advantage of these are not everyday Joe Blows that found themselves. They're intentionally looking at this as a business opportunity. I've had this said to me as an offer. Why don't you be an Indigenous sales force? Just cringe factor, It's unreal that people just think that that's all right. So, yeah, I think Kieran's right here, and something I've been encouraged since doing these videos. Corporates have reached out to me and have spoken about their support for this. And corporates that I work with will talk to other corporates who their procurement or their national Indigenous manager have the same values. So they'll connect with other corporates and Indigenous businesses on a value base and on an ethical engagement. And they'll stay away from things that have red flags.
As for Colin Briggs, the young electrician in deep trouble, the day after our interview, his lawyer was told that the tax office would not be proceeding with the demand for $700,000.
Bro, he took me on a ride there. It's getting emotional with him 4 minutes ago. Oh, Karla, you got me good.
If you'd like to watch this episode
We're
again,
done.
go to SBS On Demand.
Ooh.
On behalf of the team, thanks for joining us. I'm Karla Grant. See you next time.
Honey. Cool. So that is it for the episodes. Since I've aired these, I've been getting a lot of calls from people, other Indigenous entrepreneurs and corporates and government. So it's all a bit of a mixed bag. There's some people that want to give me more information to to sort of share, but I was like, I don't want to be sort of caught slanting anything, but I appreciate the intel. Also, people from corporates who say this is great, this is awesome, because they themselves have been trying to find genuine opportunities for Indigenous people in their supply chain. But then the question is, are these guys legit? And so I'm super encouraged by all the support that everyone has sent me and some of the critiques as well that people would like to redefine. But yeah, this is not to go after anyone. This is just to highlight, things that happen in our community, the Indigenous economy that's been here for thousands of years, and looking at reigniting, reconnecting that, getting our mob into jobs, into businesses, and sort of crafting out their own future, and getting a financial stability and financial literacy so that we can pass down generational wealth to our kids and to our kids' kids. So hope you enjoyed, and look forward to posting soon. If there's anything else that you want me to react to, send through. Happy to take recommendations. I do have my eye on a few other things around sort of this topic. So yeah, catch up.